let's start off by asking you, how immediate are the national security implications when it comes to this shutdown, especially when it comes to the nuclear program?
Well, the government never wants to have an exposure or a risk exposure like this does right now. When you furlough key national security personnel, such as the ones that manage the nuclear, the nuclear strategy, the manage the nuclear test sites, such as you mentioned, Oak Ridge and Savannah River. Those are big risks that the Trump administration is taking by having them furloughed. It's never a good idea. It puts the U.S. Nuclear stockpile at risk. It puts the public at risk, and I think it's something that they should really reconsider on this.
Well, since you're talking about public risk there, what does the shutdown actually mean for the National Nuclear Security Administration's oversight when it comes to nuclear security, in addition to the modernization efforts that the president talked about?
Well, Rem, I don't want to go into details because, quite frankly, I don't know the in the weeds details on this. But I can tell you from experience in working with the government, there are organizations inside the Department of Energy that have been furloughed. Whether that would normally be considered mission essential and would not have been furloughed. This is a really dicey move that they are playing, and it does put the public at risk. What happens is, if you don't have the specialized teams to respond to a nuclear incident, whether it is man-made, whether it's accidental, intentional or not, that's never a good scenario by bearing that capability down to the bone and hoping that nothing happens. That's not why those agencies are in place. The government shutdown, the longer it goes, the more risk it generates, and the more risk it generates, it puts a risk on the American public.
Well, some analysts are arguing that the shutdown, along with the nuclear facilities there, is disrupting President Trump's strategic defense goals. Do you think this is something that you would agree with, especially that he's always talking about making America great, and specifically when it comes to defense?
Look, why do we need nuclear power? That's the big question we have to ask. The reason why is because we need power to, support all these data centers and this big AI bubble that's occurring. We've seen Microsoft buy 3 Mile Island, a very notorious nuclear power plant that had an accident back in the late 70s that made worldwide attention, and yet that plant still operates because of the fact that we got to feed the monster. When it comes to national security, yeah, the national security infrastructure needs data. It needs those data center capabilities that come with having that data. It also manages to still generate a lot of electricity that's needed as part of critical American infrastructure. Right now it really hasn't hampered the bigger national security strategy. It does pose a risk, but I don't think it's hampered anything. The crazy thing about this is, at the same time that he's got all of this personnel, and let me just be clear, we're talking about 1.3 million plus government employees that are now, for the first time today, not getting a paycheck that they had anticipated, and that is a big dramatic step in this whole evolution. But what I'm saying is that when you look at this and you sit there and say, okay, well, we're going to put them on furlough, at the same day they're going to strike a billions and billions dollar deal to build up these new nuclear facilities with Westinghouse because they're paying them to build reactors. It just seems like the messaging is all off, and it doesn't give a comfortable feeling to those government employees that are going to have to figure out how they're going to put meals on their table for their families in the next 48 hours.
Well, as you said, like 1.3 million people are going to be affected. So, assuming that this goes on, what could be the long-term consequences that could possibly arise if the shutdown goes on for a while?
I think that the long-term consequences is it's going to force, in the event that this goes on for, like, let's say another 30 days, this goes on past Thanksgiving here into December. The effect it's going to have is, one, it's going to have a drain on the thought leadership inside these organizations. These organizations are not going to stick around and have to deal with this, especially under a turbulent administration such as the one we're in right now with Donald Trump. They'll go to the private sector, make more money, and that is going to create a brain drain that we're going to lose a lot of that institutional knowledge that helps keep our country and our nuclear programs safe. They're going to the private sector. Well, who's going to fill that gap? The newer people, they don't have the experience. So yeah, there's a lot of concern as far as this dragging forward, and the biggest risk is the losing of the absolute premier talent in these fields, and them going to a private sector or even to another country.
Okay, let's talk about the security staffing there when it comes to the Pentax and the Y-12. Is having temporary staff there alone going to ensure safety as well as maintain these nuclear sites? As you said, this is a very dangerous business.
I have to believe yes. And here's why I say this, is I believe that the temporary staffing that they're doing there, whether it's through contracts that have firm fixed pricing, which I won't get into the acquisition details, but whether it's through contractor support temporarily, or the recall and temporary funding of certain critical mission personnel, I don't think they're going to put something that dangerous in play because of a political game that they're playing with the national budget. So I don't think it's putting a lot at risk right now. I don't think it reduces. I mean, it's not ideal, but I think it's still something that we need to keep an eye on. But I don't think today, I don't feel like I would be in danger if I was living close to one of these facilities.
So do you think that there may be like some sort of bipartisan movement in the Congress to somehow exempt, as you said, mission critical defense sectors from the shutdown?
Well, traditionally in when we've come to these government shutdowns, there are certain personnel that are deemed mission critical. For example, the military personnel in the military have always been paid. This is the first time that they are questionably being paid. You look at federal law enforcement, you look at air traffic controllers, those people have traditionally been paid. This is the first time that an administration has said, nope, if you're shutting it down, we're shutting it all down.
But wouldn't this break down society? It would break down the government hierarchy as well. If, people aren't getting paid, they're not going to show up.
Yeah, this is a dangerous game that the administration and Congress are playing here. I mean, we just saw today. It was just being reported that the biggest union for government employees, the American Federation of Government Employees, just the president of that union just went public and said, okay, enough's enough. Vote on the clean bill. We can deal with the healthcare issues and all the other issues after we reopen government. But this is now getting out of hand. We got to move. I think that's going to resonate with Democrats. Look, the Republicans are hoping that the Democrats blink. They're hoping that, they finally acquiesce and say, you know what, we throw our hands up, we're done, open up the government. And of course, somebody like Trump and his administration are going to claim victory and do victory laps all over the country saying, look how weak the Democrats are. I think what we're going to see is there's pressure right now on both parties. Who blinks first? But we're starting to see the unions starting to say, now's the time to really put people back to work.
Okay, thank you so much, Justin Thomas Russell, for shedding light on this important topic and the difficult challenges ahead. From South Korea to the US, the threads of diplomacy and dysfunction weave the story of American power in 2025. On the one hand, a summit seeking compromise with China, and on the other, a shutdown revealing fragility within. Both test America's ability to act, lead, and endure. You've been watching In Focus. Stay tuned for more analysis and further perspectives here and stories shaping the world on Qnews.